Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Al-Huzaic Talkback Civilizations in Review. I am so excited to be here with a content writer all the way from Beirut, Lebanon, Sonia Caballero, here to talk about her first project, the Tulunid Empire 101. I'm going to throw it to Megan to read her introductory 101 words, and then Sonia, we're going to have a wonderful back and forth to learn all about this really magnificent empire.
Super duper. I'm so excited. I just wanted to get that out there first and foremost, just let you guys know that I'm so excited because I know absolutely nothing about the Tulunids. And these are the civilizations that I love learning about the most because I get to come in and say, I know nothing, teach me. So here we go. The intro. Known as the first independent dynasty in Islamic Egypt, the Tulunids achieved autonomy from the Central Abbasid Caliphate in Baghdad and expanded their domains from Egypt to Palestine, Syria, and small regions in Asia Minor. Despite constant tensions with the Abbasids, the Tulunids managed to preserve their status as vassals to the Caliphate due to their multi-ethnic army and a cunning taxation system that aligned their region with the regional merchant community. However, their brilliant administration, exorbitant constructions, and some of the greatest political marriages of medieval Islamic history could not prevent the invasion that ended the regime in 905 CE. Oh my goodness.
Let's do this.
I gotta say that the tone that you used to read it is wonderful. Like I could feel the drama of the Tulunids on it.
I mean, this is the first time I'm reading it ever. I didn't even do a practice run through, and I have to say, the drama seeps out. I think that the Tulunids are gonna be some like soap opera-esque empire that we're talking about.
Exactly. Oh, first of all, thank you very, very much for having me. I'm very excited to talk about something that I very, very enjoy, which is like actually talking about the Tulunids and the area and the region and the Abbasids too. So thank you very much. And yeah, Megan, as you were telling, like I could feel the tension and the drama, and I feel that sometimes when we write about like scientific research or civilizations, we only talk about history and data, but there is a lot of like tensions and things that people may feel attracted to. So I try to take it out from the history and put it back in our text.
I love that so much. I think that's so cool. So start us off. When did the Tulunids first come about and how did that happen?
Yeah, so it is a very interesting story actually. And first of all, we have to settle in the Abbasid Caliphate region and time. So I really recommend to have this text and this reading complementary with the Abbasids dynasty that is also in Al-Fusaic in Civilizations 101, amazingly written by Hiba Assem, if I am not wrong. And I think it's very interesting because, well, in this huge caliphate with the capital in Baghdad, in Iraq, Ahmed ibn Tulun was a Turkish slave soldier sent to Egypt as a resident governor, just as a vassal, just to follow orders. And once he was there, I think he was a very charming character because he managed to be friend with everybody. He had allies in the religious section, in the merchant and trade community in the Mediterranean area, and also with the Turkish army because they came from the same origins. So he managed to create these friendships, these allies. And in a little bit of time, in the 868, in the Common Era, he actually managed to get the financial power from the Abbasid Caliphate in Egypt, create an own army, own troops, get a financial state, and made Egypt wealthier than Iraq, where the Caliphate administration was settled. And then from there, it was just working in to get to Syria, what is right now and nowadays Lebanon, Syria, Palestine, and conquering all that area. So you can imagine how the relationship was with the Abbasid. It'll be up and down.
That's so fascinating. I've definitely studied Abbasid history, but I had no idea that there was the Tulunid connection at all. And this is so fascinating to see the connections. And wow, thank you for writing this first and foremost. The last sentence of your introduction, I have so many questions from it. The brilliant administration, exorbitant construction, and the greatest political marriages of medieval Islamic history. I mean, what a sentence. Let's sort of break that down. Let's talk first with the brilliant administration. Can you jump more into what that looked like and all of the details of that first part of this really, really cool sentence?
Actually, that's a very nice question, and it's a part that I enjoy very much researching because, well, I'm very into like literature and art, but like the ruling system and economy is a challenge for me. And I really like how this fast dynasty, because it was less than a century, it managed to do so many things from the ruling system. So basically, the Tulunids, Ahmed ibn Tulum, the first one, managed to create an agrarian reforms and actually kind of a infrastructure reform to fix the problem of the Nile River flooding. So this is very, very amazing. And also a way to keep the power from the Abbasids was having strategies, cunning strategies with the financial system, the taxation system. So basically the Tulunids stopped paying tributes to the caliphate, where they were vassals to, and they create their own financial system and make it broader, not only in the capital that by that time was Fustat, and they create their own capital called Al-Qata'i, which is nowadays Cairo, but also to all the region and then pass it through until Syria and northern Iraq. So it's very interesting how in a little time, in like less than a century, they managed to create our own new taxation financiation system, economy system. So this is the first part, the ruling part that this introduction have. But my favorite part, of course, is the soap opera, dun, 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 which is the luxury wedding, the wedding of the time, the expenditures. That's very, very interesting. And I feel that the Tulunids was a roller coaster because yeah, the first ruler, Ahmed ibn Tulun, was very good at economics and had this amazing system to keep everything on track. Actually, he was financially backed by the merchant community, so that's great. But his son was a little bit more, yeah, into luxury style. So, well, they started spending a lot in buildings, construction, massive constructions like a blue palace, amazing. And like this was an opportunity for the Abbasids to set them into traps with a wedding. And that's the part I don't want to do a spoiler here.
That's so cool. Wow.
I don't even know where to go next. I think
Yeah,
that that's
me
kind of
too.
the end. We can just wrap up here. 10 minutes done. The Tulunids were gossip central. Oh my goodness, that's amazing. You mentioned some of the buildings that they built. Are they around today? Would we know them?
Yes, actually, there is one very well known is the Mosque of Evantulum, which is in Cairo. And well, this is very, very important and interesting. I think that the modern influences or like the things that we can see from ancient civilizations tell the story to the people. No, imagine when you go to Egypt and Cairo, you're in front of the pyramids and you're amazed by the beauty of Cheops, Khafre, and Myserinos, the three pyramids, but you don't know anything about the pharaohs. So it's like a big part of the history that you cannot understand. You don't have the same approach with the pyramids. And this mosque, for example, is the only remain big building from the Tulunid era, which have a Samarian style, which is a style from the Abbasid Caliphate. So it's weird, no? There is an Abbasid structure that wasn't made by the Abbasids, by the enemies instead. It was the enemies of them. So that's great, I guess.
Incredible. If I'm not mistaken, the main picture of the Tulunid Empire on our website, on the Al Fuzaiq website, is the Ibn Tulun mosque. So very cool that it still exists, and fascinating that they use their rival and predecessor caliphate architectural style to then create their own. I love that. So cool. Let's talk about their connection with the Abbasids as a founder, rival, enemy, friend, this back and forth. Yeah, jump into it. This is so cool.
Well, here's where the big soap opera happens, and I'm glad to share it with you all. Well, the thing is, like, Ahmed ibn Tulum was sent, as I told you, to Egypt as a resident governor. He took control of everything, and then it was like a kind of treaty and war over the century. So with him, it was a bit more intense because he stopped paying tributes, for example, he stopped paying to the caliphate. He was a rebel. He was the first independent dynasty in Islamic Egypt. So, but after him, he was killed in one of these war up and downs. And his son, Humarawai, a name that I've been training myself to pronounce correctly. His son actually tried to make a peace deal. He continued conquering parts of Syria, even North Iraq, where the Abbasid administration was settled, like the main kingdom palace. But he went back to pay tributes as a way to like establish kind of, let's say, a friendship or trying to stop the war, but at the same time without giving up any type of the territory that the Tulunids already took. So in this moment, the Abbasids saw in Humarawai, the second generation, a lack, and it was that the fact that it was very into spending. So they create this wedding that I wanted to talk about, in which Humarawai's daughter, Princess Qatar al-Nada, was married to Muqtadir, one of the biggest caliph, no, the biggest kings of the Abbasids. And the plan was like, okay, we want to make a treaty, we want to make allies, but we also want to ruin them. What we're gonna do is gonna make this wedding, and we're gonna ask a lot for the dowry. Like we're gonna make a very big, expensive wedding that the Tulunids are gonna pay, because the Tulunids are giving up the women, so they have to pay this wedding. So Humarawai was like, well, great, we're gonna have an ally. Finally, we have settled territory. Syria is ours, Egypt is ours, we can do it. And it is said that this is the moment where the Tulunids lost everything. They were completely ruined. And after that, the post generation, which is Arun, and after that Shaiban, the last one, couldn't actually resist the invasion because they didn't have funds to pay the troops. They didn't have money enough because of this out of the place wedding. So this is kind of the relationship. Like the Abbasids at the beginning was like losing because of the taxation system of Evantulum, but after that winning totally because of the great wedding of the century.
Wow. Well, I think that, if nothing else, argues for like a small courthouse wedding, you know, in the future. Otherwise, you might lose your civilization.
Actually, like in my family, in my culture, we are well known for having big parties, big weddings. It's like, I want to tell this to my mother, like, this is a wedding. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, no, definitely. Oh my goodness, definitely sets the bar so, so high. Because it's like, if you're not going to ruin your entire empire and your entire ruling system on your wedding, is it even really a wedding? My goodness.
Wow, incredible. Wow.
I'm not like hating on the Nabateans in any way. We had a conversation last week. And for those of you guys watching who haven't seen it, we are doing the Civilization in Review every single week on Friday nights, so tune in. But last week we talked about the Nabateans with Coretta, and I mean, I was so impressed, obviously, because Petra in and of itself, I always, for some reason in my mind, think that they like carved it out with spoons, and it's such a beautiful feat. But I don't think that that can compete with this. I have to be honest. I think that this is such great, rich history. And I want to know more. I mean, they had a huge influence on and from the Abbasids. Did they interact with anybody else while they were there? Were they a little bit more nomadic? Did they move around? Were they just in the Levant, kind of hanging around, Levant and Egypt area?
In fact, yes. And this is a very, very important point in order for them to get this power and keep it. So basically, the Abbasids were in a very tricky moment. They were really struggling. And that's how Ibn Tulun were able to get this power. Because in this moment, we are talking about regionalism and like a lot of movements against the caliphate in the Muslim world. We had the Coptic movement, we have the Turkish troop that didn't actually recognize the Abbasids totally a part of the military. So it was always Iraq and the Turkish troop in and on. But also we have a very important part of the population, which is the Bedouins, that not many archives, not many like research talk about it, but I think is very essential. And it's that, well, the Bedouins were considered rebel. They didn't get any type of alliance or treaty with the Abbasids or with any other civilization back at the time, and they were between nowadays Egypt and Palestine and Syria, and they were literally doing their own wars, just taking their land and at least securing them or like keeping them. And actually, the Tulunids made an agreement with them. Of course, it was like a financial agreement. It was like certain rules, like this is your land, this is ours. But actually, because of that, they managed to get the Bedouin in their side. So they make the Bedouin fight for them against the Abbasid, or at least support them in these lands of Nawan where they were living. And I think this is a very important fact that is only like mentioned. And I wish I had 100 like 101 words more just to talk more about that. That's the challenge, I know, but I think it's very, very, very cool and interesting how they interact with the nomadic people that were all around.
That is so fascinating. Yeah. Well, so you can absolutely write that article as a future Alphuzaic article, and there's no word limit on those. So we'll definitely take it. But I mean, you hit the nail on the head that it is a challenge, and none of our civilizations, 101 words, does any of them justice because there's such really cool history and intrigue, and clearly a wedding that ends an empire. What a title in of itself. But there's such a great place to explore that more. So please, as our Tulunid expert, we would love that. I think that's so cool though that they connected with the local communities more so. Is there any more information you have about those connections? Was it like a military connection? Was it just we're all in this part of Egypt together? Let's be. I don't know. I'm just fascinated by the diplomacy in a way of connecting with the local communities that way. It's really cool.
Yeah, totally. And I think that it is very important the fact that the first king of this dynasty was a Turkish slave soldier, because the fact that it was part of this community made a big engagement with the troops, of course. So like at the very beginning, the first troops that joined Evantulum were Sudanese, Greek, and Turkish slave soldiers that actually for them didn't consider like following the slavery path of army, of like fighting, but like fighting for someone they believed truly in because they had the same origins. So this story is very, very, very well connected to the Mamluks that actually are being written to right now, and Civilizations 101. I'm like sponsoring a lot, but I really like it. So please, guys, check it out. Like all the civilizations are connected. We cannot like cut them with scissors and divide them. We really need to get some background and context, and it's all in the same page. But yeah, so like literally the Mamluks were after the Tulunids, and they follow the same ideology of self-liberation. And I think, yeah, the Tulunids were a very short time of period, and they fell with the Abbasids, but the idea of troops becoming, someone from the slave troops becoming the head and ruling, that is very important. I think the Tulunids started that kind of idea in the region.
I love that so much. And I think that ties in a lot to what we were talking about last week, in the same way that the Nabateans had to have very strong friendships. A lot of it was because they didn't have water in one of their capitals in Petra. And the trade routes were obviously very important to getting water, to getting resources into I don't want to say resource less, but a resource scarce area. So a difficult area to settle your capital in. But the Nabateans did a really wonderful job at making friends, developing trade routes. I think that for all of these civilizations that we're looking at, and to compare the Nabateans to Tulunids, I mean, it's almost 1,000 years apart. You're looking at something that's very expansive. And so you still find that, and even today, obviously, but it's friendships really help keep your civilization, your empire going. There's no way that you guys are going to stay strong in the way that you are and continue to prosper in the way that you do if you don't continue to make those like strong friendships. So I think that that's amazing. I'm doing some quick skimming here, but I'm looking at the key accomplishments section. And you mentioned this, Sonia, a little bit earlier, in the sense that the Tulunids had this very unique way of kind of taming the Nile River at the time. And I'm seeing the key sector of investment was textiles in helping stave off some of that damage. And I want to know everything. Just tell me absolutely everything.
Okay, so well, something that I said at the very beginning is like the Tulunids had a very great connection with the merchant community and the trade community in the Mediterranean. So in the Mediterranean region. So as you say, it's very important to have connections. Nowadays we have LinkedIn to have them for jobs. Back at the time, you need military, you need some trading here and there. So actually the Tulunids continued their way of making more money in this taxation, in this economic system, by producing and spreading their linen factories. So yeah, it was, so let's say that we have three main key accomplishments in here, which is one, of course, is the military, of course. Without that, Evantulum couldn't start at all a kind of administration independent from the Abbasids. The second one is the agrarian reform, the agriculture, how to, of course, stop the flooding from the Nile River, and making people, even though they had to pay a lot of taxes, making people proud of their lands. So they didn't work only in the capital, Al-Qata'i, previous Fustat from the Abbasids, nowadays Cairo. So not only like in the capital, but in the surrounding areas, trying to everybody engage in the same project of working their lands, paying the taxes to the Tulunid administration, and keep being proud of the land that they are working. And then the third key accomplishment is the textiles, because yeah, let's say that the military is to secure the agriculture reforms is the inside the national way to keep the people happy, keep the people with work, keep the people following you and supporting you. But then the trade is very important to make connections abroad and keep your economy flowing. And the thing is like that even Toulon was so, well, has so much potential and was so sure about the kingdom he was creating that he dared to take the coinage of the Abbasids and write down his name next to the caliphate main signature. And this is in less than a century. So
sassy. Oh my goodness.
like they totally like imagine like just like a dynasty just starting. They're again Turkish soldiers, slave soldiers. They get the military, they get the administration, and hey, I'm gonna write my name next to the king of the caliphate. Why not? I'm in the same level now. So this is fantastic.
I think Ibn Tulun is my new military hero. That's so wow. The like gumption for him to break away as a governor, create his whole new system, this whole new military and coordination, and then write his name on the currency. Wow. And that's who we should aspire to be. Modern politicians, take note. Wow, this is so fascinating.
A quick point then. Would we say that he was able to gain the power and the prestige to actually go out and like build the Tulunids because of the Turkish heritage, because they were slaves in the Abbasid army? Is that kind of the identity that we see when we're looking at like how the Tulunids came to be?
Well, I think that that's the first or essential identity in the first dynasty, in the first generation. Definitely Ibn Tulud was that. Like this was his identity. This is where he came from. But like he had a lot of strategies, he had a lot of contacts, and he knew how to use them in order to get some power and start deciding by himself. But it's true that in the second generation with Humarawai, it wasn't maybe perhaps their origins who shape their strategies and their way of leading, but more like the luxury, the expenditures, the showing off that they were powerful, more than actually securing that power and those treasures. So yes, I will get that at the beginning. Probably it would be that type of vibe. Yeah, this is the real identity of Ahmed ibn Tulun. But in the second and third generation, you can see how that type of proud origins of coming from the military, of liberating yourself are going down, and it's becoming like more, let's say, an ordinary, common king that enjoy their treasures.
Wow, I'm just blown away. I've never heard about the Tulunids until we published it on this website, and this is so much intrigue, drama. I mean, there has to be some historical video, and if not, videographers and filmmakers of the world, please do a really cool drama on this wedding, on the rise and quick fall of the Tulunids, how they broke away from the Abbasids and then were reabsorbed because of this a wedding that ends an empire. I got your title for you. Please, this is so fascinating. Thank you again, Sonia, for sharing this incredible knowledge, adding so much more richness to what this writing is. And as you said before, please always highlight the wonderfulness of the civilizations page. I appreciate that. We did not tell her to do that, but that's exactly why we have so many civilizations on our list, is because they communicated, were, you know, existed at the same time, traded with each other, fought each other, etc. And so, you know, many of our civilizations hyperlink to the other civilizations also on the civilizations page, which you also did that as well, Sonia. So yeah, it's just really wonderful to talk about the connections and seeing the through line between the Nabateans and the Tulunids, and even the future conversations that we have on this Civilizations in Review podcast call is really fascinating. So I really appreciate you being here and sharing all this really cool information with us. It is what a wonderful way to learn, and thank you for doing this work and research.
Thank you guys, like, for giving me the opportunity, and actually for letting me now explain a little bit more. Imagine the challenge in 101 words was like dying in front of the computer, like, please. So like, this is actually, let's say, like extra, just to add to, so like people can read the Tulunids and then go to the podcast, get more information, and then maybe talk to Netflix and create a show about like the wedding that ends an empire that we're talking about.
We'll make sure Alfuzek is in the credits, and you as, you know, executive producer or something. We'll work on that separately. But thank you again so much for being here, Sonia, and for sharing this wonderful empire. Everyone, please go check out the Tulunids on our website, alfuzaic.net. That's ALFUSAIC.net. This is just such interesting and incredibly fascinating information. Again, the wedding that ends an empire. Netflix and anyone else, take it and run.
Okay. Thank you very much, guys. It's been great.
Thank you, Sonia.
Well, that's it tonight for this Civilizations in Review. Thank you for listening. Look forward to next Friday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time for the next upcoming civilization. Thank you again so much for writing this, Sonia. Looking forward to this movie and all the other great things that you do. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, everyone, and thank you for tuning in.